And a happy new year, everyone. For the first time in 2024, we welcome you to the It's Official podcast presented by First Bet and Express Bet. That's Jeff Siegel. I'm Jeremy Plonk. Jeff, the horses got a year older on January 1. Thankfully, we did not.
I feel like I got older, though. I mean, it was a long week, and I had a lot of racing. As a matter of fact, it was so long, we didn't even have a show last week. We were so busy. But so we got some ground to make up here. And we're going to go back in the last couple of weeks to see if we can find something worth talking about. There are plenty of things to talk about. Hopefully, we'll set you up for the first weekend of racing for the new year. And there are some important races, especially for 3-year-olds. But we'll go back and look at some of the races that took place in the last couple of weeks. And we have some opinions on what might be worth following, or who might be worth following in the next month or so.
Sometimes we'll agree, sometimes we'll disagree, but we'll go one-on-one. We want you to go one-on-one this week in the Beat the Host contest at Express Bet. It returns. I want to say this is about the 17th year, something like that, for Beat the Host. It's been going on a long time. So Pete Aiello, track announcer at Gulfstream Park, is going to be the first host you have to beat. The last 5 races on the card Saturday at Gulfstream. The first 5 races on the card at Santa Anita will be the 10 contest races. Check out more at the blog section at expressbet.com and at news.first.com throughout the course of this week for the Beat the Host contest. Registrations are opening on Tuesday for that. Be sure to play. All your money goes into the pari-mutuel system. You're making win bets into the pari-mutuel pools. So anything you hit in pari-mutuel money is yours. Contest money each week. Season-ending prizes. Try to beat the host once and qualify for the final table at the end of the season. My favorite handicapping tournament of the year. Beat the Host starts this weekend. Jeff, you'll be a host later on in the spring, as will I, but it's all up to Pete to hold it down for us homeboys this week.
And I assure people that when my week comes up, I will be eminently beatable. So definitely play when I'm on. I'm good at practicing, but when the game starts, I'm not all that sharp sometimes. So I can say that it's worth playing for sure, and against everybody, not just me.
Right. All right, let's get to our 5 topics this week on the big board, shall we? We start off with a reminiscent of the opening week or so at Santa Anita. Started on December the 26th. Reflections of the first few days of racing at Santa Anita. Jeff, in your backyard, I know you were doing the handicapping seminars on the simulcast feed. You got to see some of these races up close and personal. Let's start with Easter winning in the San Gabriel Stakes. Now 3 for 3 since coming to Phil D'Amato's barn.
2 lengths back, War at Sea. Easter on the outside of them. Missed the cut, has been covered up and is having a sweet trip. And he's now coming after Tio Magico as Easter lengthens stride with huge momentum in the middle of the race course. And Easter and Antonio Fresu, 3 straight stakes victories. This time it's the San Gabriel. Missed the cut was a very good second. Tio Magico third, and War at Sea finished 4th.
As Frank Miramati said, 3 in a row, the Lure, the Seabiscuit, now the San Gabriel. This is the best horse maybe on turf in California, maybe beyond those borders, Jeff. A French expat, a former Graham Motion trainee on the East Coast. So there's a little geography beyond just being really good at California right now.
New Yorkers know this horse. He ran several times, I think like 8 races in New York before he showed up here. And he ran some good races, nothing that would make anybody believe he'd be a top-class grass horse. But he is now, at least based on what I've seen in California in his 3 races. Again, you mentioned the one, the Lure, the Seabiscuit, now the San Gabriel. He does it with an electric turn of foot. It's one of these horses that he can lay fairly close, but he's best when he's held up, because no matter how fast or slow they go up front, he just blows them away from the quarter pole of the wire. And now, for whatever reason, because obviously Graham Motion's a top trainer, but Easter has been taken to a different level now by Phil D'Amato. He was a decent sort of horse in France, ran in the Guineas over there, but nothing like now. And while he can be very effective at a mile and an 1/8, his turn of foot is just as good, is just as sharp. I wonder. I mean, I haven't read anything. I don't know whether Phil's going to think about the Pegasus World Cup turf later this month, but man, for the money that they're offering, I would have to think that they would take a shot based on his form here. And I mean, he is head and shoulders above anything out here in California right now.
It could be the D'Amato factor moving the horse up, of course, and also the top of ground running, right? You've got a different kind of turf out there at Santa Anita than what he had in France and then what he had in New York as well. So maybe he likes those pool table turf courses, as you like to call them, and the Breeders' Cup being in Southern California at Del Mar this year could be a good thing to be on the West Coast for a runner like this towards maybe the mile division. Easter, one to watch off of 3 straight wins now, winner of the San Gabriel. Also at Santa Anita, as we look back over the past weekend, a turf filly who really has made a mark here in the States this year at the end of her 3-year-old season. She did it again. Her name is Anisette, and she was best in the American Oaks.
Best has had it all her own way. Here's Anisette angled out for the final 1/8 of a mile, and Anisette breezing up alongside Be Your Best. Be Your Best, Anisette overpowers her in the stretch and will win convincingly. Under Umberto Rispoli, Anisette sparkles home in the American Oaks.
When she's good, she's really good, Jeff. And within that 3-year-old filly division with that kind of double restriction, she's just been absolutely almost unbeatable. Against the older horses, it'll be tougher as we get into this 2024 season, because then you start taking on some of those older Chad Browns and some of those horses around the country in the big races in the open filly and mare turf division. What do you make of Anisette?
Well, I think by the time that she runs back, and it might not be till the spring, and the game lead, Leonard Powell saying that he knows that it's going to be a competitive long year for her. There's always races for fillies and mares. He wants her not to be over raced. So I think she probably won't run until the spring. And he also pointed out how well she runs fresh. So I think they're going to be relatively conservative with her, only because, number one, that's the way she wants to run. And number two, the Breeders' Cup is out here at Del Mar. She won the Del Mar Oaks last year. There would be no reason to believe that she couldn't be of that level. She almost is. She's got 2 defeats. She's been first or second 8 out of 9 times. So she generally gives you everything she has. She got beat in the Autumn Miss behind Ruby Nell, who was a breakaway miler that got loose on the lead, ran everybody off their feet, and couldn't catch her. And then before that, second to Didia, a really high-class older mare, and that happened during the fall meeting when she was still a relatively young 3. So I think you've got a chance for Anisette to be a major national player in her division. I'm sure Chad will have about 10 of them. But at least out here in California, again, this is the kind of filly that should be able to completely dominate her division. And then we'll see how much she develops to a point where she can handle world-class competition.
And as you mentioned, plenty of races in this division to stay on the West Coast. There's really no big incentive to come east. Maybe Beverly D if you want something with some national repute later in the year. But plenty of spots for Anisette to stay west, and with the Breeders' Cup out there in the fall, that makes sense for the 24 campaign. One horse we already know who has Breeders' Cup credentials is Speedboat Beach. He ran a good one in the Breeders' Cup Sprint. He was back against 3-year-olds in the Malibu, and he took care of business.
They're at the top of the stretch, Hijazi and Speedboat Beach. Speedboat Beach has another gear and opens up a length on Hijazi at the 8th pole. 4 more to Giant Mischief and Damon's Mound. It's Speedboat Beach and Flavian Pratt. Hijazi trying hard, but Speedboat Beach has won the Malibu decisively by 2 lengths over Hijazi.
This is one, Jeff, that traveling would make a lot of sense. There's some big money around the world in sprint races and across the U.S., sprints and miles. When you just think of the first 6 months of the year, you could go to Dubai for the mile race there, the Godolphin Mile. You could sprint in the Golden Shaheen. There's a lot of money involved there. And then, of course, the Met Mile by the time we get to June. So there are chances for Speedboat Beach to get out of California throughout the course of the year. He's really good, and that sprint division is strong.
But here's the irony of the whole thing: is what you just said is true. But man, I think he'd be much better at a mile, or maybe even a little farther. Even Bob Baffert said before the race in Malibu that he thought 7/8 would be better for him than 6. And of course, in his last race, his previous race, he ran in the Breeders' Cup Sprint behind Elite Power and Gunite. But he comes out of that race to win a Grade 1. The Chosen Drawn was behind him in that race, came out of the race and won a stake. Hoist of Gold came out of that race and won a cigar mile. So to me, what I would do with him, and I will tell Bob this, not that he'll listen. Well, sometimes he kind of listens, or at least he pretends he does anyway. I mean, going overseas to Dubai for a mile race like that, I mean, I think he would absolutely just wire that group. he said that he felt 7/8 would be better than 3/4 because he says Speedboat Beach isn't really that quick. I mean, he can't go 21-1, 21-2. And when you run him 3/4 of a mile, you almost have to.
Right.
But going a mile, you can kind of fall into it and then keep going. And maybe even farther than that. His sire won a Breeders' Cup Classic. So there's that. The sire of the Dam Pioneer, the Nile, got a Triple Crown winner.
Right.
I mean, why does this horse? And he's already won 2 turns. That's the funny thing is he did that as a 2-year-old. So to pigeonhole him as nothing more than a sprinter when there is more money for milers and even distance horses, especially in the handicap ranks, I hope he gets the chance to do that. Otherwise, he's just doing what he's been doing. And if he doesn't go overseas, you and I know there's no money for sprinters around here in this country. There just isn't, So I'm really curious to see how creative they're going to get with Speedboat Beach. All I know is that he's only run 7 times. He's fresh, 4 wins in a second. This race was very, very good. He took heat and drew off. I just think Speedboat Beach is going to be, if he's in the right spot at the right time, he's going to win a major, major race somewhere.
Last fall, we speculated whether or not he should go in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile or the Sprint. The Dirt Mile, you would have faced Cody's Wish, obviously. And the Sprint, there was no easy task in there with Goodnight and Elite Power. Baffert had National Treasure to go in the Dirt Mile, so maybe splitting their contenders that way. And National Treasure ran an outstanding race. Head-to-head, who do you like better, National Treasure or this horse here, Speedboat Beach, going a mile?
If Speedboat Beach had been in the mile race, National Treasure and Cody's Wish would have been, where'd he go? Where'd he go? He wouldn't have come back,
Yeah, he wouldn't have come back.
I mean, that's how high I am of him. I liked him as a 2-year-old too, but Bob was running him 5/8 on the grass. He didn't really know what he had, and maybe he still doesn't. But I just think he's got a chance to be special this year. And again, the older handicap division right now looks rather modest. Let's put it that way. So if he doesn't want to ship him, which I would, but if he doesn't want to ship him, there's plenty of opportunities to make a lot of money. I mean, Oaklawn would make a lot of sense for me if he didn't want to go overseas. I mean, who'd beat him? Who'd touch him over there?
We talk about that older handicap division. That's where we're going next because the Pegasus World Cup coming up in about 4 weeks time now, 4th Saturday in January. We're not far off from it. Who's going to be around for that big multi-million-dollar race? The older division taking shape a little bit with a couple races over the past few days. We saw the San Fernando in Southern California. We saw the local prep for the Pegasus World Cup and the Harlan's Holiday. That race won by O'Connor. Didn't get a great pace shape. Didn't get a clean trip, but he got to the winner's circle, and he's headed to the Pegasus next.
We're down to 2 chances here off the turn and the stretch drive. The leader is Grand Aspen. On the inside, O'Connor has a 16th to get by. New York Traffic back running again. Final 16th of a mile. New York Traffic not done. He's closing ground. O'Connor finishing up toward the rail. Here's O'Connor inside. O'Connor gets up to win it. Second is Grand Aspen, third is New York Traffic, and fourth is Steel Sunshine. The Harlan's Holiday to O'Connor.
Jeff O'Connor for Saffie Joseph Jr. headed towards the Pegasus World Cup, where he'll probably join stablemate Skippy Longstocking in the gate there. O'Connor was a winner in the fall meet at Keeneland in the Fayette, going a mile and an eighth. That race, the Harlan's Holiday that we just saw, used the 16th pole finish line, mile and a 16. So different dynamics there. He looked vulnerable to me on paper going into that race because of the race shape and because of the short stretch, and he still got it done. What do you make of O'Connor moving forward?
Well, I'll agree with you there. I don't think that's his best race. He won it. I'll give him credit for it because I thought maybe he was using the race as kind of a tightener or a prep for the Pegasus. Maybe he was, and he's still good enough to win. He got through inside. I don't think it was a great field or anything like that. Grade 3, the 100 Byron number is probably not going to be good enough to win later this month. But maybe it will be because I'm not really sure who's going to be in there. Doesn't look like White Aario will be. The Colton, California, who won the race out here, that was a similar type of race, doesn't really inspire me at all. Newrange. So to me, man, I don't know where the handicap horses are going to come from.
Well, let's take a look at Newrange's win in the San Antonio. Again, this is a move that you say doesn't inspire confidence going to the Pegasus.
Newrange on the outside. Brickyard Ride hanging tough at the rails. Subsanador at the rails. Stiletto Boy top of the stretch, and Newrange tries to sprint away. Brickyard Ride's running a big race along the rail and not done yet. Subsanador still has 4 to make up in the final furlong. It's Newrange well off the rail and in control. It will be Newrange and Arad Ortiz Jr. to win the San Antonio. Mixto rallied.
The horses in behind there is kind of what you expect to be some of the beef of the division. Stiletto Boy's one of those horses that you can almost always count on. Maybe he's, towards the end of it. He did not run a step in that race of any repute that you want him back in the Pegasus World Cup. Subsanador, the Argentine, who we thought maybe would be a rising star in the handicap division, didn't fire at all, beat just one home in that race. So Newrange, the winner, not a horse who that, just kind of makes you jump up and down. The California older handicap division is anybody's bag.
Well, this puts it in context, okay? The runner-up Mixto had just broken his maiden. Now, sometimes you get a real hot maiden and they're good and they run well. He'd run like 5 or 6 times without breaking his maiden. Finally broke his maiden, didn't do it with much of a fig. This fig was just 99, and Newrange did it with a perfect trip. If you remember him, he started out like he was a hot shot. He broke his maiden, won the Sham, won the Southwest. Then he went stale, changed barns, 5 years of age right now. 6 out of 12 is a pretty good record. That's what he's done, but, he's not fast or anything like that. So, no, I mean, maybe if he goes there, he'll be competitive. Why wouldn't he be? What does he have to beat? I mean, the same horses that we saw in Florida, they're not anything great. So I don't know. Where have all the handicap horses gone? Long time passing, as far as I'm concerned. I don't know.
Right. Well, the star of the stars is training. You saw him out in Southern California just recently. In fact, New Year's Day yesterday, White Aario was out for a spin for the Rick Dutrow stable. No target guaranteed next, but they're assuming, the Saudi Cup Dubai kind of international travel. Yeah, I guess if he's kind of kicking down the barn, Jeff, they could, change gears and say, why don't we take a shot at the Pegasus as a tune-up between the Breeders' Cup Classic? But your thoughts on how White Aario looks in the morning as he heads towards this 5-year-old season?
Well, I wasn't that keen on him in the Classic because I wasn't crazy about the way he was training. Now I'm watching him here. He looks great to me. So if he won the Breeders' Cup Classic and I didn't like the way he was training, and then I see him now, and he might even be better now than he was then, and he was pretty good then, a lot better than I thought he was. So, maybe they just bypass the Pegasus and go straight overseas. There's a lot of money no matter where he goes, but what a good time to have a good handicap horse. A good older horse, because I'm not sure where they're coming from. Arguably the two best 3-year-olds from last year who you would think would feed into this division now. They're both retired. So I don't know what to tell you other than, man, he looked good to me. I don't know what they got overseas, but that's probably where I'd be headed.
Yeah. National treasure maybe for the Pegasus. We could see him back off that second in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, last year's Preakness winner, of course. And Smile Happy's listed as a potential starter in that one. He's gotten decent for Kenny McPeak. He can't stay healthy and put together a long sort of campaign, but on his best day, he's been a pretty nice horse. Maybe the 1 1/8 would suit a horse like that. So the older division taking a little bit of shape as we head towards the Pegasus World Cup coming up at month's end. Our third topic this week on It's Official, we'll talk some new kids on the block. We've got some horses who are starting to make their names known for the Triple Crown Trail potentially this year. One of those appeared at Santa Anita last weekend. It was Imagination. This is $1 million son of Into Mischief. Bob Baffert trains, and Imagination stretched out around 2 turns with success.
And it's Imagination with a 2.5 length lead. Indispensable, fully extended, but trying very hard in second. They come to the 8th pole dominating. It's Imagination by 2 still. Kumura trying to rouse Indispensable, but as they come to the 16th pole, Imagination is just too strong, and he cruises through the stretch untroubled for a 40% profit.
So, Jeff, what do you make of Imagination, a horse who put it together now, getting around 2 turns?
One thing I know is that if you want to have a good win a maiden race around here, you better spend some money, because this colt, as you mentioned, cost over $1 million as a yearling. The runner-up cost 825,000. So, I mean, if you think you can go to a yearling sale and buy one for 75 and run out here, forget it. Don't even bother. But again, another one of these 3-year-olds in Baffert's barn. He's got unlimited supply. Second in both of his starts. Got beat last time out at 30 cents on the dollar, but ran well and earned a good number. And now he builds on that. First time Lasix, as all the 2-year-olds are now that they can use it. Inside speed. He's by into mischief. He strikes me as a colt that is learning and getting fitter, getting smarter. And you look at his form and you wouldn't put him in your top 10 or anything like that, or maybe not even in the top 15 or 20. But Baffert's got a way of taking these horses and they seem like they just get better. They just, and especially when you're bred like he is and out of a mare by Empire Maker, he should run farther than just a mile.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's one of these you have to keep on the back burner, Jeremy. I mean, we'll find out. He probably is the kind of horse that'll be shipped out somewhere. But
right,
he's a new kid on the block, and you better pay attention to him.
Got the 2-turn experience now. Maybe to Oaklawn, one of those that Baffert takes out of town could be one that we see traveling.
Right.
Bourne Noble was debuting at Gulfstream Park in recent days and impressed for Todd Pletcher. Yes, we're talking about the big barns because they've had the big impact. Here's Bourne Noble.
Bonus move under pressure to hold the lead. Bourne Noble looms a major threat on the outside through a 45 4.5 mile. Off the turn and the stretch drive. Bourne Noble. Irad Ortiz Jr. tells the son of Constitution to put him away. He's shifting ground. He's a bit green, but he's a bit good as Bourne Noble is 6 in front. And he's an easy winner in the end. It's Bourne Noble at 6-5 to kick off the card, reporting home 5 lengths to the good while under a very nice hold. Close then for second.
So he's all over the track. He's shifting around. If you follow Dornock, Mage's brother, he had some similar trips at 2 last year, and he's one of the favorites towards the Kentucky Derby. And if you've seen these Gulfstream races, in recent winters, Todd Pletcher wins a lot of maiden races, a lot of first-level allowance races with these kinds of horses that just have a tremendous amount of ability. Sometimes they're green. Charge It was very similar, a very green, lightly raced horse last year, Jeff, and he never really put it together. Can we expect Bourne Noble to put it together in another start or two, as this Constitution colt is well met, costing $725,000?
Well, he better, let's put it that way. You're not going to pull that stunt against good horses. On the other hand, you might be thinking, well, if he did that and he didn't have any idea what he was doing, can you imagine when the light bulb goes on? By Constitution, out of a really nice Ghost Zapper mare, ran out here in California. This is the first foal of that mare, young mare. Decent family, third dam by Prize, which of course catches my eye. Rokeby Rose by Tom Rolfe. There's a ton of stamina in third and fourth generations, and so he's a new kid on the block. We never heard of him before the last couple of days, December 30th when he ran, and now he's one of Pletcher's prospects. And again, you don't necessarily put him in your top 5 or anything like that, but man, he's one race away from being there. I can tell you that if he goes out and does what I think he might be capable of doing. So absolutely look at Bourne Noble as a new kid on the block. Absolutely worth following.
Pletcher sends a lot of them over to Tampa this time of year off this kind of form and late bloom, winning here at the end of the season in 12:30. So you could see this horse at Tampa. I could definitely see Bourne Noble trying that path in the coming weeks and months. Now, we did talk about the big barns. We talked Baffert, we talked Pletcher, but you could get a good horse, right? I mean, we just saw Gustavo Delgado win the Kentucky Derby and Jenna Antonucci win the Belmont this past year. How about Ron Moquette? He's got one named Time for Truth, who was a winner at Oaklawn recently.
way. Time for Truth in front. He's on the rail now. Chun Money got a breather around the turn. He's coming back at him, and those two are locking horns at the top of the lane. Go Captain in the third position. Losing ground is the top pair right together approaching the furlong pole. Time for Truth inside. Chun Money is outside. Time for Truth with a length lead. Chun Money trying to get by him, but Time for Truth starts to inch away. Time for Truth, the first time starter by Omaha Beach, is going to do it for the Ron Moquette barn. Time for Truth, your winner.
All right, let's talk about this one on the Arkansas Trail.
Well, I don't have a buyer number on him, but he did earn a 102 Equibase fig. That's strong. Now, you look at this colt. He's by Omaha Beach, first crop. Omaha Beach, he may have been the best colt in his crop. Never had a chance to prove it for Richard Mandela. But he's had some nice horses so far, and out of him, everybody looking at Lucky. So theoretically, he should run on. But here's the thing about him. He sold at the sale, a 2-year-old training sale in Ocala, and he breezed during the preview session in 9 4/5 seconds, which is absolutely smoking, which means that every big shot who had $1 million or more to spend had to look at him. You don't breeze that fast and that well and get ignored. And yet, when he went through the auction, when he went through the ring, he only brought, and I mean only, $47,000, which means everybody passed on him. So I don't know what his legs look like. I don't know what physical problems he may have had. But when you breeze that fast and nobody buys you or nobody bids on you, there must have been an issue. And yet he went out first time out and ran very fast, looked good traveling, won the race by more than 2 lengths, ran fast, won stylishly, and again, bred to run a little farther. I don't know what to make of him, Germany. His pedigree is decent. It's a decent family. So what do you do with him? I mean, you take him for at face value, or do you have doubts? I don't know.
Well, you probably want to say, let's see it again, right? And it's going to get tougher. You're not going to get a lot of allowance races at Oaklawn. They don't fill many 3-year-old allowance races this time of year. So he's probably going to have to step up into the stakes ranks, maybe a little bit later in the meet. But it took a long time to get this horse to the races too, right? He didn't debut until 12/31, right? The New Year's Eve. And that's probably a credit. Like you said, he had some issues coming out of the sale, obviously, physically, so they gave him time, and they were rewarded for that with a nice debut victory. So he might be one that needs time, and one we're looking at farther down the line, and not just a prospect who goes from this race and 4 weeks later is into some, grade 3 and trying the Southwest or something on President's Day.
Yeah,
that's probably not what we're looking at.
I hope they let him be what he wants to be. I mean, maybe eventually he'll go a mile, but you don't need to be throwing him into the fray right off the bat. He beat Maidens, as you mentioned, probably not a great group, but he ran fast and he showed some guts. So I'm going to put him on my list to watch, and I don't know where he'd go, but if I couldn't find a non-winners or 2 somewhere, I'd find a really soft, maybe Tampa, I don't know, stakes. Try to maybe give him another 1-turn race. Don't stretch him out quite yet, and eventually, you'll find out how good he is.
Those are the horses who are the new kids on the block amongst these 3-year-olds. Our Triple Crown Tracker segment is up next, where we've had 3 stakes races of repute here in the 2/3-year-old division in recent weeks at Fairgrounds, at Oaklawn, and also at Gulfstream Park. Let's go first to Catching Freedom, winning the Smarty Jones Stakes yesterday at Oaklawn. This was a New Year's Day performance that really is reminiscent of some of the good ones Brad Cox has unleashed in recent years.
Catching Freedom's going to get to the outside. He's being pumped upon to get going, but swings to the extreme outside as they come off the turn. Mystic Dan, Jess Steele is right there to tackle. Catching Freedom on the far outside. Informed Patriot getting bumped around at the rail. Jess Steele in front. Inside Mystic Dan back to second, and Catching Freedom is finding his best stride now. And Catching Freedom and Christian Torres racing clear. He kicks off his year with 10 Kentucky Derby points.
So a big win there for the Brad Cox trainee, Catching Freedom in the Smarty Jones. Not the strongest field that you're going to see at Oaklawn, and the Smarty Jones typically has very little historical impact compared to the races we're going to see, like the Rebel and the Arkansas Derby later in the meet, and even the Southwest that's going to come up in a month's time. There's a big gap between these races, typically the Smarty Jones and even the Southwest Stakes. But this particular horse, Jeff, is of interest to me. I like him.
I do too. I mean, he earned an 87 buyer number, which is solid for this time of the year for a 3-year-old. Nothing wrong with it. 10 points better than his previous, so he's producing those forward moves that you want to see. By constitution, so there's no reason he shouldn't run on and out of a mare by Pioneer of the Nile. So he has the pedigree, and he obviously has the looks. They gave $575 for him as a yearling. So, I mean, he's got to be good looking too. So, I mean, I think Brad's got a chance. I mean, he has a right to be optimistic here, and did it the right way. It looks like he'll run on. So he's progressing at a proper rate. He's not there yet, but he's headed in the right direction. I think he's okay.
Reminds me a little bit of Angel of Empire from last year. That style, the connections. I like the way he's moving forward. And his race at Churchill in the fall when he ran fourth as the beaten favorite was behind a horse both you and I respect a lot, Parchment Party for Bill Mott, who is a 3-year-old that you want to put a ring around, I think, to look forward to. He's in my top 10, I'll tell you that. Parchment Party is one of the horses I'm looking forward to in my Countdown to the Crown series, which kicks off this Friday. So this flatters the form of that race from the fall at Churchill as Parchment Party now has an allowance win, a maiden win, and moves up into the stakes ranks. But certainly the victory by Catching Freedom in the Smarty Jones looks good for that runner. It looks good for his former foe, Parchment Party. Another 3-year-old stakes race that we saw in recent days was yesterday's Mucho Macho Man. That won by Otello, the New York shipper for Christophe Clement. He's buried down, but he finds a way through.
Needs room toward the rail as they straighten past the quarter pole. Otello's trying to squeeze through a very tight opening with the advantage now. First World War comes away with the lead. To the attack now, no more time. Inveigled had to wait for room and is down the center. Sea Streak is fighting very hard. There's an 1/8 of a mile to go in the Mucho Macho Man. Sea Streak hard up against the rail. Inveigled down the center. Otello loose for the drive. First World War between. First World War. Otello gets up. Otello and Luis Saez win a thrilling renewal of the Mucho Macho Man in 137-3.
I needed Sea Streak on the rail to hold, at least even hold for second in the exactness. And that was a tough beat in there. He ran his eyes out. But look, a couple notes in here. First World War, the horse who ran second, also came out of that same race with Parchment Party and the winner that we just saw at Oaklawn Park for Brad Cox, that being Catching Freedom. So that race obviously becomes even more live as we talk about it. But what about the winner, Otello? The one start in New York for Clement now gets a real education in this race.
He did, and I'll give him credit for his ability to find victory when it's needed the most. In the last 20 yards or so, broke his maiden by a neck. This one he won a cavalry charge, official margin a half length. Number was modest, 76, so he's really going to have to step it up in terms of that. But he is by Curlin, and because of that, there is hope that he will progress with maturity, with distance, with experience. He's got that going for him. And so far, he's been a couple of one-turn miles. When I think maybe when he gets a chance to go 2 turns, he'll improve. But he has moxie. I like that. I like horses that can snatch victory when it's needed the most. Right under pressure. They all kind of finished in a heap, which usually means it was a slow race. So I even think I think Christophe Clement doesn't know what he has. I think he was quoted as saying, "Well, I don't get the chance to train too many Curlins." Yeah, but maybe this colt will be okay. So I think he's realistic. I think he's all waiting to see what he'll do next time, and we'll find out how important he's going to be in this class. Maybe when he stretches out. That's Otello, 2 for 2 so far.
Yeah, I'd like to see him end up at Fairgrounds because they run 1 1/8 down there. The final couple preps, 1 3/16 to the Louisiana Derby. So the Risen Star at 1 1/8, Louisiana Derby 1 3/16, long stretch run. I don't know if he's a brilliant turn of foot type to beat the fast horses and the top horses that are going to end up in races like the Fountain of Youth and the Florida Derby. And with Clement, he's not going to have Kentucky Derby fever. He's been around forever and a day, and he's not one to push when he doesn't even get horses that are really in the conversation for the Derby most years. So I can't imagine he's going to catch the fever. If you're going to make an early bird bet on the Belmont, maybe you think about Otello, because that's the kind of race you think Christophe Clement, if he had a good 3-year-old in the spring that he might try to, highlight. And this year's Belmont Stakes, what is going to be 1.25 miles, I think, at the Saratoga. So
yeah, it is the classic distance of 1.25 miles for the Belmont. Yes.
Yeah. So who knows? Maybe Otello for the Belmont at Saratoga, but he's one to keep an eye on now. 2 for 2 after winning the Mucho Mucho Macho Man. Now, a trainer who does have horses typically on the Derby Trail in big numbers, Steve Asmussen, has another one in Track Phantom. A couple weeks ago on the 26th of December, he won the big one at Fairgrounds in the Gun Runner Stakes. That was actually pre-Christmas on December the 23rd. Let's go back to that victory, and I think the top three in here are all really nice horses.
As they straighten away, it's Track Phantom in front after 3/4 in 1 minute 12.04 seconds. Track Phantom leads Nash by 2. Sneed charging hard on the outside. Nash is third toward the inside. It's Track Phantom who's still finding as they come down toward the final 16th with Footprint back in fourth. With Christian Torres, Track Phantom is leading home Sneed. Nash is third to Track Phantom and the Gunrunner. Track Phantom has won it by a length to Sneed.
Now, the disappointment in there was Nash off that huge victory, big number. I think he won by 10 in the most recent start. He was favored in that spot, did not get it done that day. But, of course, Track Phantom for Asmussen, a high-quality 3-year-old moving forward. And the runner-up Sneed in there is one I really, really like. Brendan Walsh trains that one. Sneed's one of my sneaky horses. I mean, if you had to give me like a number 5 pick in a fantasy draft right now for the Derby, I'm liking Sneed right below the cusp of those top horses in the division. I think he's got a chance to have a big future. So I like this Gun Runner race.
I liked it too. The 89 buyer number is good, is solid. Track Phantom, he went head and head early with another horse. That other horse ended up last beaten 30 lengths. Now he was 36-1, so maybe that's where he was supposed to. But after putting him away, Track Phantom kind of switched off midway and then rebroke and won the race by a length over Sneed. So again, a high quality road. He's a colt that was coming off a maiden win by 5 lengths, comes right back on the stakes and wins with another forward move on the buyer scale. So Track Phantom's got a profile that I really like. Yet another horse. You want a horse like Track Phantom, and you want to be in the Derby talk. You got to give $500,000 for him as a yearling to do that. They don't give nothing away, really. I mean, you got to spend your money. But I like Track Phantom. He's got a pedigree suggesting that he will run farther, and he will definitely improve with age. He's out of a really good race mare, Myth Sunset, who actually won a race called the Raven Run at Keeneland a few years back, and she was actually a California-based filly, but really good race mare. Second foal for her, so good family. So I think this race is going to be good. I don't know what happened to Nash, other than I couldn't find an excuse in the world for him. Now, maybe he had one that I don't know about physically, but I think the first 2 finishers in this race, Track Phantom and Sneed, are going to make some serious noise through that series of races they have for 3-year-olds at Fairgrounds.
And we'll see, like the big names are in Florida, like Fierceness, or California, like you see with Nisos and Muth and some of those types. So who emerges out of the middle of America is always one of the interesting things we see during the Triple Crown Trail, Oaklawn, Fairgrounds, etc. We will see.
Well, Jeremy, I don't envy you. You got a task at hand for Friday. I think you're going to release your countdown of the crown.
Yeah.
And I think you got a lot of juggling to do here, because you not only have to figure out who's best, but who might be better than best in 2-3 months, because these 3-year-olds are at various stages of development, and what you see now may not be what you see in March or April.
Right. And you get some horses who are really good sprinting, and you're like, well, what are they going to do? Valentine Candy, right? We just talked about that horse from Steve Asmussen, won again over the weekend sprinting, but doesn't seem to be like there's a big interest in going long with that runner. Could be the next Matoli for him, you know? So you've got some horses who have credentials, winning 2 stakes early in the meet at Oaklawn like that, but not necessarily horses you're thinking of as Triple Crown prospects. So those are the kind of things that we're juggling and trying to figure out as we start countdown to the crown for the 19th season, started in 2006. This will be the 19th year for it again. Check that out. CountdownToTheCrown.com coming up this Friday. We will preview the Jerome Stakes and the San Vicente, which are the 2 big races on our Triple Crown tracker this weekend coming up. The San Vicente, 7/8 of a mile at Santa Anita on Saturday. The Jerome is a 1-turn mile, features the Remsen 3rd place finisher, drum roll please, for Brad Cox, and also Regalo coming north from Laurel off back-to-back wins. Only 5 entered in the Jerome. Not going to be a great gambling exercise. We'll see if anybody of significance comes out of that one. The draw for Saturday's race at Santa Anita, the San Vicente, will be Wednesday. So we'll find that field out later in the week. Be sure to check out my previews and handicapping. And Jeff and I will handicap those 2 races, I'm sure, in our Friday podcast coming up this week when we reconvene for the First Call podcast. Our final topic each week on It's Official is our Stars of Tomorrow segment. We've already teased this a little bit with new kids on the block, so we've got a lot of fresh faces. Why not? It's the first week of the new year, so we're thinking ahead right now. Let's look ahead to a future star named Kinza, a big winner here last Friday.
As the field turns for home, it's Kinza just in front, Miss Bojay, followed by Coastal Cowgirl Tahini on the outside, Splendora at the fence. Final furlong, Kinza has widened to lead by 4. Splendora comes through along the inside, but it's Kinza in a sparkling debut, overwhelming the competition and striding out to win by 7 easy lengths.
That was the way the filly wrapped up her 2-year-old season. So we were hinting at some of those horses that are new kids on the block for the Triple Crown to go. Maybe Kinza towards the Oaks.
Well, I'll tell you what, she's by Carpe Diem, and he stands in Louisiana now. Windstar kind of gave up on him. And yet this filly, pedigree or not, brought $350,000 in the 2-year-old in training sale at Timonium. She'd been in through the auction twice before that, as a yearling, I think as a weanling and a yearling. Or anyway, she brought something like, I don't know, 13, 14,000 and then maybe 17,000, but she went through the ring at 350. Pedigree be damned. You go back and look at her breeze on video on the Facing Tipton website and your mouth drops. I mean, it's just, what? This looks like ruffian. I mean, that's how impressive she was. So they gave all this money for a stallion who stands for 3,500. That's what you get. I mean, these guys, you can't fool these guys. I mean, if you got a good filly, a horse, they're going to find it and they're going to spend money. It doesn't matter who it's by or who it's out of. And she's such a beautiful mover. And she earned a 96 buyer number in her first start this race. There are colts who would kill to have a number like that first time out, or trainers or owners who had a colt that could do that. And, out of a by Quality Road. And believe it or not, she's a New York bred. So good horses, top horses can come from anywhere. I don't know how creative Bob's going to get with her, but again, the obligatory Bob future star here. And not to be outdone, the runner-up Splendora, who earned a giant number in her first start, finishing second in this race, another Baffert. So I don't know why anybody would bring good maidens to California. You're just banging your head against the wall. But Kinza, I mean, she's just an athlete. She is just an athlete. She's going to be terrific. Obviously, we hope that she stays out.
And I guess we have to throw the asterisk up on the board. If any of these Baffert horses are Oaks or Derby discussions, they'll have to move Bournes or get litigation again during the course of 2024 that favors them back into the field.
I think there'll be some juggling for the Colts, but I don't think Kentucky Oaks is going to sway anybody to make a change. But the Colts, yes, they're going to have to find a new home. No question about it.
That's a look at our 5 topics this week on It's Official. Review them quickly for you as we did our Santa Anita reflections, taking a look at victories by horses like Easter, Anisette, and Speedboat Beach in the Malibu. The older division trying to take shape as we head towards the Pegasus World Cup at the end of this month. Newrange won in Southern California. O'Connor won over the home track there at Gulfstream in the Harlan's Holiday. And we got to look at White Abarrio's first workout of 2024 yesterday, 48 flat at Santa Anita. As for the new kids on the block, we've got a couple new ones to take a look at. In Imagination, $1 Million Bob Baffert, an impressive 2-turn winner. Bourne Noble for Todd Pletcher drew off in the debut at Gulfstream. And Time for Truth for Ron Moquette outran him at Oak Lawn Park on New Year's Eve. Our Triple Crown tracker takes a look at the Smarty Jones Stakes win by Catching Freedom. Otella winning the Mucho Macho Man after a troubled trip. And Track Phantom winning off in a good-looking edition of the Gunrunner Stakes at Fairgrounds. This week, we'll talk Jerome and San Vicente in our handicapping show on Friday. And our star of the future was Kinza, 96 buyer debut for this first-time starter by Carpe Diem for the Bob Baffert Barn. Those 5 topics are now official because Jeff Siegel and I said so. That's the way we play the game, and we'll do it all again next week. Rarely that we take days off on this one. We do it about 50 times a year. Last week, we took off for opening day at Santa Anita and observing the Christmas holiday. We'll be back each and every Tuesday with It's Official, where next week, Jeff, we'll have 5 more topics on the board, and we'll do it all again. Should be a fun weekend of racing coming up here this weekend, and we'll have some more topics to talk about.
Great mix of racing for 3-year-olds, older horses as well this weekend around the country. We'll handicap them on Friday in our first call show. But out here in California, we had a very good week of opening week. Good quality racing, fair racing. The weather was a little wet. By the way, I want to give props to Santa Anita. I know I work for him, but that's okay. That we had about a half an inch of rain on Saturday, and the turf course took it in stride. It was, you could barely, I mean, it was rated good. It was a little slower than normal, but not bad. And then Sunday, with one day off since the rain, it was back to being fair and firm, and the horses got over it. We used to have some trouble with our turf course a few years, not several years ago, and they fixed it. Better drainage now. I think it's the best grass course in America. So I wanted to say that based on what I saw last weekend, and we use it a lot. Half the races at Santa Anita are on grass, and it seems to take the pounding and as well as anything. So kudos to the people who take care of the grass course and who figured it out finally after all these many years in which it was being criticized.
Couple betting notes as we say goodbye for the week. The Coast to Coast Pick 5 wager returns this week, and it's going to be Saturdays and Sunday. It's going to get you 5 races from Gulfstream and Santa Anita each and every Saturday and Sunday over the next couple months. So be sure to check out the Coast to Coast Pick 5 wager. And also, again, reminder, Pete Aiello, the first host up in the Beat the Host competition. If you want to start handicapping, they've already drawn Saturday for Gulfstream. It's the final 5 races on the card at Gulfstream. It'll be the first 5 races for Santa Anita's Saturday card. Those will be drawn on Wednesday for Saturday. So Beat the Host is back this weekend, as is the Coast to Coast Pick 5. On behalf of everybody with First Technologies and my partner, Jeff Siegel, I'm Jeremy Plonk. Have a great week. We'll talk to you on Friday.